All right, welcome to the College Game Day podcast. I am Dan Wetzel, ESPN, joined by Pete Thamel, back from vacation, and Max Olson, both from ESPN, and both were at Big 12 Media Days in Frisco, Texas. Nothing like the Big 12 jumping right into the excitement. Everyone's sitting around on July 4th saying, what do the Big 12 coaches have to say about the season? So thank you for that. We'll get right into it.
Dan, you missed something there. You got to say brought to you by Monster Energy.
Brought to you by Monster Energy for apparently not enough money. I don't.
The internet was really mad about that.
Whatever. Yeah. Maybe they could have gotten better. Well, I think they would have tried, right? Would you drink Monster Energy because the Kansas State football team's got a patch on its jersey? I don't know. Maybe.
Do you think they should replace the Gatorade on the sideline with Monster? Would that have a performance effect?
Oh, that might.
Max, you're an energy drink guy. What do you think of Monster?
I did test the product over our 2 days in Frisco.
All right.
Had a sugar-free one. I think it was a citrus one. Not bad. All
right. To give you a little pop?
It did. I suppose it did. I mean, at a certain point, once you've had, 6 cups of coffee, you got to switch to something else,
That's fair.
Perhaps. That's not how all of us live, but that's all right.
Maybe water. Water might have been good, too.
Switch to whiskey is what we switched to. All right. So the Big 12 is interesting because there's two things I saw from afar. And this is the big... Brett Yormark has discussed this in the past, that it desperately needs some people to step up and become nationally competitive, preferably to the point where there's multiple bids to the playoff for this conference. Obviously, this was a conference that for years had Oklahoma and Texas in it. And although they didn't always win the league, they gave a ceiling that could be hit that was national championship level. The Longhorns and Sooners could get there. They could recruit top 5 classes. They could have those kind of athletes, and it often imploded, certainly on Texas through the years, but it was there. And the league that is currently constructed is 16 teams strong, and almost all of them have great potential, and it's a really fun, interesting league because of that, but there is no separation, really. Until Texas Tech came along with Cody Campbell and Joey McGuire and decided to go really heavy into rev share, NIL, just aggressive in every single manner. And that has given them somebody who has the potential to get really, really good. This is a league that has not won a playoff game since TCU beat Michigan back in, was that 23? I believe 22.
I think 2, Dan.
23 is when Michigan
the Big Ten's
won them all.
won 3 straight titles.
Yeah.
So
they had that upset
24,
in 22.
25, and we're going into 26.
They have not won a playoff game.
Yes.
22. That's right.
Yes.
So Texas Tech is that team.
Which means, Dan, that Matt Weiss was not in jail because he was calling the game for Michigan. So
Matt Weiss, he's still not in jail. He is facing his charges. He was the offensive coordinator.
Sorry, he was not under. He was not under legal distress at the time that we knew about.
He may.
Although I believe TCU did change their signals for that game. Yeah, I remember they said that after.
Did say they changed.
Oh
their
yeah,
signals.
no, they definitely changed their signals. Yeah,
and Michigan had an offensive coordinator who may have been distracted, amongst other things, and an offensive line coach who was distracted. I don't know how Michigan ever won a game, really, considering the coaching staff. It's not really dialed into a lot. They had a lot of hobbies, legal or otherwise.
The way they called plays on the goal line in that game, they were not dialed in the red zone.
Matt Weiss, I don't even want to joke
remember that. So
I don't even want to joke about Matt Weiss.
Yeah,
That's,
no, I know.
Too big of a crowd. But
I was just pointing out how long ago it was.
That's how long ago it was. He was,
but also that was 14 playoff. That was like win one game.
Yes,
and we're magically in the title game, and now it's just a totally different climb up the mountain.
And no one in Fort Worth remembers what happened in that title game. So we'll not speak of the title game that year. But they need Texas Tech. They need somebody. Texas Tech is that school. Texas Tech has been the most aggressive. Part of that aggressiveness was a willingness to defend and support Brendan Sorsby when he sued to try to get get to play, even though to get the NCAA's banned against him, and that caused all sorts of problems. And now the league is fighting with Texas Tech. There was 15 schools on one side and Texas Tech on the other on this, and the Big 12 actually sued Texas Tech, and that lawsuit is yet to be withdrawn. And there may be maybe over a battle over legal fees or something like that. We don't know, but there's officially at this moment a lawsuit between the Big 12 and Texas Tech, which makes for an awkward situation. I'm wondering your guys' position on this, or what the mood was in that the school that is doing what the Big 12 needs the most, which is be aggressive and say, we want to win national championships. We want to rise. We can do that out of the Big 12, is also the team that is in the crosshairs and public enemy number one of all these schools. Was there anything there, or am I just seeing something from afar, Pete?
Oh yeah, I mean there was definitely an undercurrent of tension as it went throughout. And give Joey McGuire credit; he's a fairly infectious personality, and he tackled things head on. Brett Yormark did not tackle things head on. He came in with a very clear strategy of, we will not let Brendan Sorsby ruin our media day. Every time Brendan Sorsby's name came up, he talked about 16 teams, which from a PR standpoint is probably the best thing to do, right? Because that was clearly the biggest story looming over the conference, looming over media days, and looming over Texas Tech season until kind of they get to camp and really officially start life without him. What was Joey saying? What's next? Is that it, Max?
That's right. Constantly saying what's next.
Yes. And so he was fairly adamant about pushing things forward. Will Hammond, the little on-field news was that Will Hammond, the quarterback, Joe McGuire said maybe ready for week 1. They had thought it might be week 3 when they play Houston, and what will be a huge Big 12 game. You can never count Houston out. You never count a Willie Fritz team out. And Houston's one of those kind of sneaky dark horses we'll get to later. But they open with Abilene, then they go to Corvallis, Oregon, which is never, there's been no easy trips like recorded in history to Corvallis, Oregon. I don't think Oregon State is what they have been, but it's still, you'd rather have your top quarterback there and not.
But they still have a chainsaw, and that's worrisome. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So, like the Sorsby issue loomed and will continue to loom until the Big 12 and Texas Tech sort of formally resolve all that. And I would think that's still probably going to take a few more weeks.
I think certainly all sides are now trying to say, like, hey, we're going to move forward. I talked with Cody Campbell this week, and he's like, we wish they'd handle that differently. We hope they handle it differently in the future. My sense from talking to officials there is actually there's like more angst now. Not so much angst about Brett Yormark and his handling of a delicate situation. I think most coaches in the league felt like Brett Yormark handled it well. I think that there's more angst about the other people in our league need to mind their business and not speak up on these things and give us some respect, even though, this was such an egregious case that you can't actually expect everyone to just sort of sit silently and say, well, let's just see how this plays out. I trust the process. Like, I think that, as it was put to me earlier this week, there are going to be some games this year from Texas Tech's perspective where they're going to be up 50 and still throwing in the fourth quarter. I think that is how they're looking at some of their peers in the Big 12 at the moment. But also I think that speaks to the extreme confidence among folks in Lubbock that Texas Tech is like got everything they need to, go 11-1, 12-0. I mean, I think that, and you talk to their players, and very likable group of players, like they just gush about just all the excess talent they have at all these positions. It just feels like they really didn't miss on hardly anyone in the portal last year, and it sort of feels that way again this year when you talk to their coaches and players. And so they're sort of, even without Brendan Sorsby, they're sort of too loaded to fail. Of course, a lot of people in the Big 12 will be really satisfied if Texas Tech goes 9-3 and falls out of this race. But I think they feel like they are still cruising right back to the Big 12 title game in the college football playoff. And I think that there will still be, when Brett Yormark walks into Jones AT&T Stadium at some point this season, there's probably going to be some tensions with the fan base there. I think you saw a little bit of that at the podium. But as we all know, with the Brendan Sorsby case, one of the only arguments you can make is basically whataboutism and trying to, well, what about Cincinnati and what about the tortillas and all that. And so there's still definitely some lingering tensions there. I think the officials have generally are trying to move past it. They know it wasn't a great look. They know that there's some things they would do differently, but I think certainly to the fan base, there's a big FU from them to the Big 12 at this moment.
It feels like one of these bad rom-coms, I hate you, but I love you, I need you, all this different bit. And, lost in all of the Sorsby bit and it's just how good Texas Tech is potentially getting. And obviously Sorsby would have helped, although maybe they don't need him. But, making the playoff, I think they had 9 guys drafted. They had their best recruiting class they've ever had. Portal class is great. I mean, you look at the all Big 12 preseason team, it's Red Raiders everywhere. Their high school recruiting for next year. They have arguably the 2 best defensive line recruits committed. They went to Michigan and got a cornerback that the whole Big Ten wanted. Gideon Gash, whose brothers play at Michigan State, and everybody wanted them. He's going to Lubbock. These are things that just never happened. And I wonder how much of this, and maybe this is, I'm playing, I wouldn't call it Red Raider advocate, is just everybody saying we don't like the superpower that they're building, and so we're going to take it out any which way we can. And how much of that you think is legitimate? We all saw the picking on old Texas Tech, banning the tortillas and not, like you said, all the whataboutisms. But is there anything to that with these other schools being either jealous or just or fearful? Pete?
They're definitely jealous of the amount of money they have to spend, and they are annoyed that, look, Texas Tech in some ways is spending twice as much as the lower tier of the Big 12. So, so I think that there's a general annoyance with Cody Campbell, speaking out that people need to, spend competitively with Texas Tech. There were a lot of eye rolls. I mean, the league was generally pissed at how Texas Tech handled the Sorsby situation, and that was 15-0. The ADs gave as blunt of quotes as you've ever seen. Sonny Dykes really went public. He's a Texas Tech graduate. His dad was the coach there. He's coached there. He was very forceful in his comments as well to do that. Now, if they were 0-9 last year, I don't think it would cause the same stir, right? People wouldn't care as much, and that's sort of the reality. It's funny, Dan. It's very indicative of this new money era of college football, right? Texas Tech has won a grand total of 1 Big 12 titles, right? And they won it last year. But the bellwether for whether or not you'll be a good team in college football is how much you spend, right? That's the first marker of how talented you're going to be is what you're going to spend. Because you're like, oh, did you recruit well? Well, what'd you spend on your recruits? Did you go do well in the portal? Well, what'd you spend in the portal? So, and they are going to win that seemingly every year, as long as Cody Campbell is pushing his billions into the pot. Texas Tech is going to be at the forefront there. It is an interesting spot for them, Dan, and I'll close here because Max will have some good insight on the tensions in the league. Texas Tech has put themselves on an island because the way that Cody Campbell's handled the bill and the way that the Sorsby thing was handled, the SEC and the Big Ten want absolutely nothing to do with Texas Tech. That's been made very clear through the Georgia public comments, through the Nebraska public comments. If you read the tea leaves of what the commissioners are saying about the bill, Texas Tech only has the Big 12 to go to. No matter how much they win and how much they spend, in the near future, they have no other league that they could go to, right? So it's sort of like a classic bad marriage right now where they are stuck with each other. Like there are no other options for Texas Tech.
Yeah, including going independent. Like there's not some sort of big like we're out of here that everybody's like, okay, well there they go. I think there's kind of a lingering long-term tension there too, guys, where when you think back to the end of the Texas and Oklahoma era in the Big 12, and how that put the whole league in jeopardy, even to the very end there, when that news first broke, the Big 12 was like, okay, well, let's call an emergency meeting and you tell us what you want and we'll try to give it to you and like you can stay. Like to the very end, they had all the power in the league and they knew it and they wielded it. And I think when those 8 schools were left behind, that leaves a really big scar in terms of like, okay, we went through this, we lived through this, and we survived it. But as you have a conference now where somebody else is going to try and step up and be the power, I think everybody else in the conference is sensitive to like, we're not going to get bullied. Like we're not going to get bullied by Texas Tech. We've lived through that with Texas and Oklahoma. It doesn't end well. There's, we just gave and gave and gave and it never made a difference. And so I think that there's always been, for a couple of years now, there's been a lot of Cody Campbell envy because everybody would like to have a billionaire who just writes the checks and says whatever you need. I think it has converted to more disdain this offseason. I think part of that is Cody trying to have it all in terms of being involved in protecting college sports and all, his influence is growing and growing. And I think for a lot of Big 12 schools, it's not just we don't have a billionaire. It's like we're trying to pay the bills over here. Like we're trying to find $15 million for a football team, and that is we're having meetings all year long about trying to figure out how to do that and how to sustain that. And so I think in some of these schools, it's also like, yes, we're going to follow the rules and we're going to follow the cap, and someday there'll be a reckoning for the Texas Techs of the world. Of course there isn't. Of course there hasn't been. And so I think that all kind of feeds into all of this. And I think I think Cody, we've talked about this, but like, I think he's aware, like, if Brandon Sorsby got busted at Cincinnati this spring, this maybe wouldn't have been as big. It's a big story. He's a big draft prospect, but it probably wouldn't have been as noisy. And I think Cody was kind of a multiplier to that a little bit in terms of the attention on it. And he contributed to it with some of the comments he made too. And so I think that there was a little bit of a cost to that this offseason. But when you have that guy who is also your board chair, it's not like anybody can say, like, hey, why don't we sit a couple plays out here? You know what I mean? He's calling the shots here, and I think that has just really raised the tensions in the conference, and I don't see that changing. Texas Tech is not going to say, okay, all right, we'll slow down here. We'll start paying less money to these players. Like that's not going to happen. The conference members can't do anything about that piece of it. I just think there's been a lot of moments this offseason where I think within the conference it's like, okay, we're going a little too far here.
You mean like when Brendan Sorsby and Texas Tech parted ways and the board chair released a 3-page statement about a football personnel move? Is that unusual, Max?
That he did.
Did that raise eyeballs? A 3-page statement? When every other school would have said, we wish Brendan Sorsby the best of luck in his new venture. He is no longer a member of the UMass Minutemen.
Well, I will say this, Pete.
We'll take him.
We wrote a story this week.
I don't care if he's playing. I don't care if he's in a back alley craps game right now in Holyoke. I will take him.
So we had a story this week on the final, the final days and the fallout of the Sorsby saga that ran on Tuesday on ESPN.com. And one of the takeaways from talking to people after the fact, even as the dust settled and everybody calmed down a little bit, and this is just the bottom line, Texas Tech officials do not believe they did anything wrong. And I think nobody's going to change their mind on that. And I think that will continue to be an element of this that, adds some tension and some drama to the season ahead.
I did get the sense, Max, from talking to people that the higher ups at Texas Tech were like quietly embarrassed. They never quite said, We're embarrassed, but like the vibe they gave off, the body language they gave off, and the tone they gave off was like, look, we tried to pull a ruse here. It didn't work. We know why. It was basically like, we know why you're pissed, right? Like that was the vibe I got from people around the Big 12. The actual university leaders who were employed by the university were embarrassed but couldn't show it. But could sort of quietly express that.
Yeah, as it dragged on, there's certainly some people who were saying like, yeah, I don't love how this is going and how it's being received. And I think that goes back to, many people will tell you like, how true this is, I don't know. But many people will tell you they didn't think they'd get the temporary injection.
And
once that happened, then it was like, ooh, okay. Not only do we have to put a plan in place for Brendan Sorsby, but we're here comes the avalanche of a lot of mad folks, and I think certainly on the AD side in the Big 12 is just sort of like, do they not understand why 99% of us are like, this is crazy, you can't do this.
Yeah. It was a crackpot ruling, and they had to go with it at that point. So it was like, okay, I kind of understand their spot. They probably are like, yeah, sure, give it a shot, kid. And then it works, and now it's like, well, we're stuck now. I do find, I get it. I think this is great. A villain is great. A villain.
And they are the villain.
And it is great for the Big 12. And Cody Campbell's work in Washington is massively beneficial to the Big 12. If it wasn't for Cody Campbell's work in Washington, that bill might be like, Big 12 what? We don't care about you. So he's doing a lot of good stuff, but having a villain. But at the same time, when you're sitting there and a guy's going, hey, just find your own billionaire former player who wants to spend millions of dollars and become the board, like, oh, great, thanks. It's like when rich people, they give advice. Like, you want to make money, just start buying apartment complexes. You'll start making a lot of money. It's like, what? You're missing step one here. I can't get a mortgage. It's just, I can't get a starter home. I'm sorry, I couldn't buy that high rise in Midtown. That
sorry,
you should have bought real estate in Manhattan after COVID. Okay, yeah, I really should have. But
you need a mailbox to get mailbox income, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. It just anyway. All right, other program, and it's kind of amazing that this became the villain program or the centerpiece program. Because if you were going to tell me there was one a couple years ago, I would have said it's the one coached by Deion Sanders, Colorado. Mm-hmm. Deion is a lightning rod. He is a spotlight. He is whatever you want to call him. He stirs the drink, always has, and is not afraid to make sure that if things get a little quiet, he'll say or do something to rev up the interest again. But it has gone quiet. Obviously, last year, 3-9 on the field. Worse, Deion was handling significant health situations, a cancer diagnosis along with this other stuff. I read your article on this, Pete. It's very good. Get it on ESPN.com on Coach Prime's discussion with that you had the quotes on. And, he said that was part of what kind of held them back. Also, losing Shedeur, losing Travis Hunter, things like that. But where are we with Colorado? Can this program get back to being an important program in this country and in college football? The over-under on wins is 4.5. There's not a lot of hype. They do have Julian Lewis, terrific quarterback that they brought in. They lost some guys in the portal. I've noticed Colorado has got 20 commitments at the high school level. Are they committing now, which I thought they always should have, to high school recruiting, where I think Coach Prime could have a lot of impact. Is the Deion experiment, can it still work? It had so much excitement and so much momentum, and then it's almost has to reboot. Pete, what you think?
So I'll go from the macro here and then talk a little bit about Deion from there. These are the Colorado coaches after Gary Barnett. Dan Hawkins, no winning seasons. John Embry, 3-10, 1-11. Mike McIntyre did have one good year in 2016. Mel Tucker went 5-7 and got promoted to Michigan State. Not sure how that ended up for Michigan State. Carl Durrell was after Mel Tucker. So you are just talking about a run of maybe the worst hiring run that any single institution has had in America in the 2000s, right? It would be hard. You would be hard pressed to find back to back to back to back. And McIntyre was fine. All right. Like he's Vince Lombardi compared to the other guys. Right. So now some of that, there were league changes. There were, but it had not gone well. So Deion Sanders will forever be credited for making Colorado interesting when they were just in a rut of putrid football, uninspired football, no stars, nobody interested. They were just completely dead as a program. For a program that was so alive in the 90s and 2000s, they were just dead. So the hire of Deion Sanders was the ultimate hand grenade of desperation. And it has worked in spots. Today, right now, I have no idea, Dan, how good Colorado is going to be. They'll probably have 11 new starters on defense. We know Julian Lewis was a top recruit. They do have good skill at receiver. There's a case where they can be mediocre. It's hard to imagine Colorado being great at this time. Your year 4, Sanders being back would certainly, actually having his hands on the team. He said to me at one point, there was a couple of national media there that he wasn't himself. He was there in body last year, but he was sick and it wasn't of sharpness of mind is basically a paraphrase for that. So any head coach being around his team and having his hands on his team and molding the vision for his team is going to be tough. But being around Colorado for a day there, it doesn't feel like this is a long-term thing anymore, Dan. The buzz has worn off. It was, Max, you've covered all those Big 12 media days. I've been around. Deion Sanders used to show up and it was like the Pharaoh in Egypt. I mean, people would flock to him and go. And now they invited the national media to do a Coach Prime chat. When he was there, 3 people showed up. Everyone used to hang on his every word. And it just feels like, the buzz is gone from there. Now, look, they can go and win early on. And the one thing about Deion, he'd get the buzz back by doing that. But I think the fairest way to say, to cast Colorado is that, their ceiling this year is like a bowl game. You know what I mean? They're not going to be a playoff contender. They go to Georgia Tech to open the season. It's a terrible matchup for them. One thing Deion Sanders said about their personnel, which is very difficult to gauge because there's so much there, is that they're weak at defensive tackle. Georgia Tech is going to ram the ball down their throat. They have Justice Hayes, who's one of the 3 best tailbacks in the country. And you would just think Georgia Tech is going to take delight in pounding the ball down Colorado's throats. Thursday in Atlanta, you'd be delighted to know Deion did say no curfew for the team, Dan, only curfew for the coaches in Atlanta. Which makes sense. But just
the Gold
from
Club
30,000 feet, Colorado, what was that?
Is the Gold Club still open?
Is what still open?
The Gold Club.
I'm not the best expert on that type.
They had a big trial.
That type of nighttime activity.
It was a famous trial.
Oh, there was a big trial with the Gold Club. That's fair. Yes, that's fair.
I never.
But it just, it feels like the Deion era is tailing off. I think. Now, look, they go win 31-3 in Atlanta, and everything will get reignited because everything's going to be amplified with Deion Sanders. If they go 3-9 again, it's going to get noisy and ugly. And if they go 9-3 again, like they did with Shavur and Travis, but I don't know, Max, you would know their roster from your portal work better than I would. There's a lot on a sophomore quarterback who should be a true freshman who enrolled early, and uncertainty on the offensive line. Although some big names from some big brands. And then just who the heck knows on defense, right? You got a new coordinator who was promoted in the middle of the spring when their defense coordinator left. They were, I think they had the 133rd ranked rush defense last year. They were putrid on defense. They were bad on offense too, but they were putrid on defense. So it just feels like that thing's wheezing out right now unless something drastically changes.
Yeah, I think the sort of the easy lazy take was sort of okay, once Shedeur and Travis are gone, is this even going to be fun for Coach Prime anymore? And I think last season was not fun. The Caden Salter experience was not fun. Nobody had a great time last year. You got new coordinators, you got a new roster again. I think the optimistic read on it would be like, at least could they be fun to watch? Can Brennan Marion's go offense make them fun to watch? I think you mentioned it, the receiving core. They brought in Danny Scudero, the nation's leading receiver last year at San Jose State. They brought in DeAndre Moore from Texas and Cam Perry from the MAC. And like, I think they feel like they're going to be able to air it out. The players say that's been, tough to defend in practice. Like it's been, I think certainly much needed in terms of just a fresh offense that players are excited to play in. Did you guys catch, this went a little viral. Did you catch the Julian Lewis quote from Media Days, though?
I did.
I did.
I wrote it down. He asked his biggest improvement. He said, I'm actually looking at the defenses now. Last year, we wasn't really looking at defense as much, just kind of high school free balling out there playing football. It's a lot bigger than that now. So that's not great. It's not great to hear, but that is true of the freshman quarterback experience to some degree for anyone, right? So
there's also Pat Shurmur. Like, he was an old NFL OC. He's not just going to roll the ball out, right? Guy's a pretty accomplished coach.
During the week, they were doing some stuff, right?
I really wasn't reaching him. Wasn't reaching Julian. Yeah. It's a very confusing quote.
Well, that's fair.
Pat Shurmur has a quite distinguished career. I mean, he's not you don't just last that long in the NFL. No, maybe he's not he's not Bill Walsh. But that was a wild quote. But who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he kept it high school because that was all the kid could handle at that point.
That may be. Again, optimistic read, like the second most FBS snaps added this in the portal this offseason behind Oklahoma State. It probably hurt them that there wasn't a spring portal because they've used that a lot to run guys off and replace them. And so, when you're doing it all in one run, you hope that you have more hits than misses. But to go back to kind of the larger point, the Big 12 needs Deion Sanders in Colorado to be successful. They need it for the image of the league. They need it for the TV value and all of that. And we didn't touch on it. We're talking about Tech, but you talk with Brett Yormark. It's very clear. The Big 12 needs a 24-team playoff. They need multiple teams in that playoff. They need teams that can win playoff games. And Joey McGuire said that too. They fully know that is one of the big picture problems that they need to confront here going forward. And so the Big 12 needs a successful Colorado. They need BYU and the rest of these programs that have been close to break through and make a playoff. But that's certainly... things have not changed from that standpoint, even if Colorado has been a bit unwatchable. They are still a big ticket for the Big 12, and this needs to be a good year for everybody.
I would guess, Dan, that Colorado is the only power conference team that's going to play 2 Power 4 road games in the non-conference this year. They go to Georgia Tech and then they go to Northwestern. Now, again, those are okay, in theory, those are coin flip games, right? But, if you play Colorado School of Mines, the coins weighted a little bit differently. They are scheduled to fail, and Rick George left them with that. Now, some of it's pro market, right? You got to get butts in the seats, all that kind of stuff. So Colorado's always scheduled pretty aggressively, but that's a pretty tough slog when you go to Atlanta. You have Weber State at home, come back, and then you go to Northwestern before you open up league play on the road at Baylor. And that will certainly be a game where the losing coach will very likely be under a heat lamp.
I always just wish Coach Prime had really worked the high schools recruiting. He went all on this portal early, and I just thought that theory needed more balance. It was an attempt to just go straight portal, but it's a really hard way to go, even when you're Deion. Especially a couple years ago, Deion rolling into a high school in Texas, and the whole school is going to go crazy. And there's still some old principles to this job that I think would have been nice. One good thing for the Big 12 this offseason was Kenny Dillingham of Arizona State decided to stay at Arizona State despite getting an offer, the framework of an offer. So, no one's really offered a job in college football until they've accepted the job. But good story by in USA Today by John Bryce with Kenny talking about he was out at a dinner at the trendy Fat Ox restaurant in Scottsdale. It has a 25-layer lasagna on the menu. They got that at Limoncello's, Pete. I mean, 25 layer lasagna.
I wouldn't want to eat at the Skinny Ox.
No, that's a good point. So it was a big meal. And Michigan calls, and maybe it was the 25 layer lasagna that got Kenny to say, no, I'm staying. But he, this is a guy, it's a heck of a job to just turn down. And he said, I told our athletic director and president, as long as we show what we're advancing, I just want our place to continue to advance. We came from so low 4 years ago. We were essentially rock bottom. All I want to do is show improvement every year, and not just the improvement of, hey, winning. Hey, everybody's improving. We got to bridge the gap. And he said he really wants to build a program. Now, look, he is a Valley guy. He is Arizona State through and through. His family's all right around him. They're all going to he's got tons of family. They can each have one layer of the lasagna at the Fat Ox. But still, it was Michigan. And for the Arizona State to maintain this young coach that everyone thinks very highly of for good reason, that's a big boon and says a lot for ASU, Kenny, and the Big 12. Max?
Yeah, especially for that moment in time. Like, that was a super senior heavy team at Arizona State last season. Like, that would kind of be the natural, even in a down year, that'd be kind of the natural time to throw up the deuces and move on to a better thing. And guys, we just had our top 10 head coach rankings on ESPN.com this week. I had Kenny Dillingham towards the bottom of my top 10. Like, I think now that Matt Campbell and Kyle Whittingham have made their moves, like, he's maybe, and maybe you can point to a different one if that comes to mind for you, but he's maybe the one that I'm like the most intrigued to see what he could do with major resources someday. And, he has rallied that base extremely well there. But from day one, he has had a very clear vision of the way things are in this sport. And that is, what do you need, Kenny Dillingham? I need money. Give me more money. We need money to pay these players, to build up a program that we can sustain success. And so, certainly Michigan coming in,
they got
creates
money.
Another leverage opportunity to say, okay, I'm staying here. Where's the money? Show me the money. And so, and that's what he told us when we sat down with him in Frisco, that if Arizona State keeps investing every year, I'm good. I'm happy here. This is where I want to be. And Pete, you can speak to it too. I thought his perspective, we talked to him a little bit about Sam Levitt going to LSU and some of the players they lost this offseason and how you deal with that when in a world where you're trying to manage that money. I thought his perspective on Levitt and the QB room was pretty refreshing.
Yes. So he basically said, Dan, like, look, my job's to improve these guys. And if they go improve, I can't pay them $6 million a year. So, like, go on and we'll find the next guy to do that. I do remember Sam Levitt's transfer from Michigan State to Arizona State. About 11 people cared, right? He was a fairly anonymous backup. I think he maybe had started 2 games. Like, it was not something that like caused a ripple and was like, oh, this guy's going to go be a first round pick or whatever. And so,
they were bringing him in to compete with Jaden Rashada, Pete.
That's true. Yes. Where is Jaden Rashada right now?
Mississippi State.
He's a backup. What? Mississippi State. That's right. Yeah.
He gets around. Yeah.
He can get his own podcast just going through everything. But
travel guide.
Look, I met Kenny Dillingham about 10 years ago. He was the quarterback coach at Memphis, and I believe it was at a convention, and I'll never forget it. He was like, "Look, I bet you meet a lot of young coaches, and they say, I want to be the coach at Alabama. I want to be the coach of the Packers. I want to be the coach of Patriots." He's like, "I want to be the coach at Arizona State. That's all I want to do. That is my entire goal." And he wanted to be the coach at Arizona State by age 30. He didn't quite make it there, but he wasn't that far off either. So there is some genuineness behind that. I know his family famously lives on his block and everything. He did point out something interesting, Max. Arizona State, Dan, because of the online program that they have, is a cash cow. That university is just a monstrous slot machine. Now, I don't know how to look up the university analytics of how much money they make, but they have tens and tens of thousands of graduates every year, both on campus, massive student body, and then online, massive. That Michael Crow, their president, has been generally a disaster with athletics, but he has been a great president for moving that thing forward. Michael Crow is the great advocate of Larry Scott and the great advocate of Mark Emmert. Two bad Derby horses to have the last quarter century in college athletics. But he was
going down with the ship with Kliavkov too. Let's not leave
that's
that
true.
out.
That's true. Yeah. No. So he But what's interesting is like he's turned and the reason why he's been there so long. I mean, that guy's been the only Arizona State president I think I've ever covered. The reason he's been there so long is he's just turned the place into a cash factory, right? And nobody's gonna run the guy out if it's a cash factory. And basically, Kenny just wants to slice and say, "Hey, this is the marketing arm. Let's go. Let's do this and build this." And the playoff was a nice taste for that school to what they. Oh, hey, you're sitting there in a duel with Texas and 10 million people are watching. All right, that's pretty cool. Okay, you don't want to get left behind in the next round of this stuff. Well, you better invest. You have the market right now. You have the right coach. The recruiting area there is underrated too, Max. Like there's good players there. You know what I mean? Like that school could get hot really fast if it had the financial backing. And Kenny Dillingham's aware of that, and credit him for holding Arizona State's feet to the fire to bring the money in.
There's probably some coaches in the Big 12 where if you did truth serum and like, can you win a national championship here? They'd be like, no. I mean, let's be honest. No. Kenny's probably more like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Why not?
Yeah. No one's ever set foot on that campus and said, geez, why do kids go here? Like, I don't get it. Like, why would you? I mean, it's been the sleeping giant forever. And, but listen, it's one thing to say, hey, I want to be the head coach at Arizona State. It's another when you're losing you're losing players to the portal and Michigan comes along and says, come here. You're not losing anybody if you come here. And you go, I want to be the head coach at Arizona State. That's a whole different thing. All right, let's get to some other schools, programs. Let's do a little game. We could do a little draft. I love drafts. Pick an intriguing player or figure, could be whatever, in the Big 12, someone who's either going to break out, a program that's going to break out, or you're just interested in seeing play, whatever. We'll try to roll through a few of these. Pete, you want to go first? Most intriguing Big 12 member? Breakout guy? Whatever.
I'm going to go a little off the radar to start since we're talking about Arizona State. Yeah. I'm going to go a little off the radar, go a little bit of a deep cut here. I'm going to take Arizona State receiver Reed Harris. He's a transfer from Boston College. He's from Great Falls, Montana. Not exactly, like going from BC High to BC, Dan, right? No. And Reed Harris was a wonderful. He's 6'4". He can really run. He's a long, productive receiver, and he has blown them away in his first semester on campus there at Arizona State. He had 673 yards receiving last year, 5 touchdowns. BC wasn't exactly a electric factory on offense last season. So I really think the combination of Kenny Dillingham's office, the fact that Arizona State has 2 or 3 other elite receivers, so there won't be a ton of attention on him. I think Reed Harris ends up as a first-team All-Big 12 receiver, and he has the physical traits to be an NFL draft pick.
It's a good one. I was going to go to Arizona State too. I think we're talking with Kenny Dillingham. The hype around Jake Fetty, their true freshman QB that came in this offseason, definitely stood out. He's a top 150 recruit. He played high school football in the Austin, Texas area. Dillingham and his teammates absolutely love him. Dillingham thinks not only can he be a first-round pick when it's all said and done, but he said he's as good of a freshman talent as he's ever had. Now, A&M week 2 on the road, that's a tough one. Don't know if you want to throw a freshman in the fire there, and so maybe that's too challenging, and you go Cutter Boley, the Kentucky transfer at QB. But I think at some point this season, we're going to see Jake Fetty out there, and he may not give up that job if he gets a chance.
No Mikey Keene love? You don't think Mikey Keene's going to be scooting around? He's 27 years old. He should get a chance.
I mean, he's played, rough estimate, about 70 games in his career, something like that. Right? Yeah, I mean, it is nice to have a vet. And I think that QB room, you lose a very high profile guy, but man, I think they feel really good about the options they have here, and it's going to be a battle through camp.
Well, I'm going to go just in an effort to keep the Arizona fans from calling this the Sun Devil digest. How about Noah Fafita as our intriguing breakout? I don't know if he's a breakout. He could be a Heisman candidate. He sticks with Arizona. You know what happened on April 4th, 2021? Noah Fafita committed to the University of Arizona. He's still there. I mean, that alone these days would have been nothing 10 years ago, but now he is stuck. He is not, his coach left. He's had a million chances to leave. Go to bigger schools, more money, whatever. This kid loves Arizona loves UA. Terrific quarterback. They are a sleeper to me in this league. Obviously, there's Tech, but who's in that second spot or who can knock off Texas Tech? Why not the Wildcats? So that's my guy I'm watching.
Another QB one that jumped out from having conversations yesterday in media days. I think the Utah quarterback room is going to be really fun to watch too. They say Devin Dampier was not healthy last season, and that showed in the running ability, but he's good to go now. And Bird Ficklin, I don't know how much folks outside of the Big 12 know about Bird Ficklin. He was a true freshman last year. He ran for 150 plus yards against Colorado and against Baylor. They got him to re-sign, which is tough to do when you've got a really good backup nowadays. But Morgan Scalley was hinting like they are going to put both of those guys on the field at times. And, even talking to the players, they mentioned, the clips you see of Cam Ward and John Mateer lining up next to each other and running trick plays and stuff. Like, I think that duo, it seems like they get along well. And certainly they're going to hand it off to Ficklin, I think probably next year. But those guys playing together, I think could be really dynamic.
Pete?
I believe the Fafita stat, Dan, is that he's one of 3 fifth-year quarterbacks in college football who stayed at his same school for all 5 years. I believe that I went there for Hoops Game Day and sat down with Fafita, and that was the stat that Arizona had. So that's pretty wild. I mean, think about Matt Castle went to USC and never started.
He just stayed.
He just stayed. Yep. He just stuck around and, hung out. And there's worse places to do that than USC. I am going to go to BYU, and they returned 8 starters on defense. They were 19th in the country last year in scoring defense. They brought in a linebacker from Cal named Cade Ulave, who was first-team All-ACC linebacker last year, had 12 TFLs, West Coast guy, and I feel like what they return combined with Cade Ulave is going to make BYU a top 10 defense this year. And for all the Texas Tech hype, I wouldn't be surprised if BYU walks away with this thing. Those teams don't actually play in the regular season, which stinks for football and Big 12 and them. Obviously, BYU got thumped pretty good by Tech both times last year, so I think they're anxious to get another crack at them. But obviously Bear Bachmeier is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. LJ Martin's preseason player of the year, but I think on defense, BYU is going to have a bunch of big maulers who can put some teams in the mud. Noah Fafita goes there, I believe, week 2, which will be an interesting test for both teams.
Ton of great quarterbacks in the league. I mean, that's a lot of great returning quarterbacks. And I'm going to go with the quarterback room of the Houston Cougars. It features Connor Wegman, who was a 5-star recruit, went to Texas A&M, never quite got it going there. Got to Houston last year with Willie Fritz, 10-3, excellent season. And then they have freshman Kayshawn Henderson, was by some accounts, the number one, many accounts, the number one recruit in the country last year, number one quarterback in the country, out of Spring, Texas. They have 2 5-stars in the Houston Cougar quarterback room. That's got to be a first for that. And so great depth, great potential there. I would very much look out for UH this season. Again, 10-3 last year, a lot of potential, and they can keep going. And they do get Tech on, I think, a Friday night in week 3, which will be one of the biggest games of the season. One more round. What do you got there,
sure,
Max? Why not?
I think a couple that jump to mind. I think Justin Bowick, the wide receiver at Oklahoma State, guy that transferred in from Illinois, big athlete, just a freak who didn't really have a high target role with the Illini last season. I think that, when I visited with Oklahoma State this spring, yes, Wyatt Young's going to get a ton of targets. Yes, Caleb Hawkins is going to get the ball a ton. But they view Justin Bowick, when they brought him in, they're like, why can't this guy be like a Biletnikoff guy? Like he's a monster and they can't guard him. And then, we've like Pete and I have been hyping up Jaden Craig. Like we're expecting a lot from Jaden Craig at TCU. But I would also say, like, when you talk to Sonny Dykes and their players about the direction on offense, this could be a really big year for Jeremy Payne at running back. And he finished out really well in that Alamo Bowl, but there's no question, like, Sonny Dykes is committed to running the football this year. He got tired of all the turnovers and the lack of commitment to running the ball during the Kendall Briles era. And, they've moved away from that more air raid style, and they want to be more pro style, even if it's got air raid concepts within it. And I expect them to pound the rock behind a good offensive line that has a lot of guys back.
I think we'd be remiss if we just didn't say the name Drew Mestamaker on this podcast, right? Drew Mestamaker is going to be the best player in the Big 12 this year. He led the nation in passing last year, so it's not some surprise when he was at North Texas.
State.
I believe Drew Mestamaker is the single best Oklahoma State quarterback, from North Texas. I believe he's the single best story in all of college football. Max wrote his story earlier this spring. He did not start for his high school football team at quarterback. I believe until he started a bowl game at North Texas as a true freshman. His last start prior to that was for the freshman B team at Austin Vandegrift. He got beat out. He played safety, had D2 offers. Eric Morris took a flyer on him, and he is soaring. NFL people have told me to not be surprised if he ends up being the number one pick in the draft. Maybe not this year. The guy just has played a lot of quarterback. But, in 2028, I think that's a very realistic possibility. He's got good weapons. He's got a good scheme. Eric Morris has a deft history as a quarterback whisperer. So, I am really excited to see what Drew Mestamaker can do, especially. I think they open at Tulsa, but especially week 2, Oregon is on the schedule. I believe Oregon comes to Stillwater, which will be fascinating. Now, Oregon's really good, and they have a really good D-line. So I'm not saying he's going to throw for 400 against the Ducks, but it will be a really interesting test. And if he shows well there, the hype train is going to take off.
I'm going to give a group pick to the Cincinnati offensive line, which had 3 guys selected, either honorable mention or all preseason Big 12. They got some beasts up there, maybe, multiple NFL draft picks on that line. Is going to be as good as anyone. And then as an individual, very intrigued at what happens to DJ Lagway at Baylor. Florida quarterback, huge hype, great recruit, has a ton of ability. We've seen it. But then last year, just in a disastrous year for the Gators, too many interceptions, 14 interceptions, including 5 in the game against LSU. How does he do in a new situation? He's healthier. Baylor, Dave Aranda is going to be kind of on that hot seat, how things go. DJ Lagway knows about that pressure. They had it last year at Florida. What is Lagway at Baylor? I'm really interested in watching that happen. Any others, or can we move on? There's a lot of teams in the Big 12. That's the problem.
Let's move on, Dan. I think we gotta get our you have some news of the weird.
Yeah, we do have some news of the weird. Wanted to get a little People's Court type story in here, just so everyone can just a warning to everybody out there. We're here to serve our audience and remind them to stay on the right side of the law and render justice when necessary to these stories. And so what we have here is the story of Annette Nichols of Florida, of Vero Beach, Florida, and the
Florida
crime
woman.
spree. Florida woman, SEC, just means more. Just means more in Vero Beach. She's known. The 59-year-old Florida woman, this is from the Smoking Gun. They do great work. Was arrested on a theft charge, and what happened was she was going to her local Publix and using the self scan. You got to do it all yourself now. It's like you work at the grocery store, and you got to admit there's a temptation to just maybe not scan all the items. I mean, you're like there. Now, granted, they got like 40 like cameras on you. Don't do it. Also, just don't steal from the Publix. But I think everyone's had the temptation of because sometimes you mistake. Oh, wait, I got to make sure I get that right. At least that's me. I don't know. I'm not that good at it. That's why I don't work at a grocery store. If I was good at it, maybe I'd be there, but I'm not. So they've given me this job I'm not good at. I get confused. Anyway, here I am. Well, she would go every week and buy all her items, and she would scan every single item on her list, except for one. Week after week, she did not scan her banana chips. She would buy a bag of banana chips for $6.49. She would not buy them. She would take them and then not scan them and put them in the bag. And week after week, this was going on, and she was getting away with it. But the inventory at the store was like, where the hell are all the banana chips? They're not getting sold, and they're not on the thing. And so there was a run on banana chips, the banana chip bandit, as she's known down there in Vero Beach. And so they set up kind of an operation to check to see, because they pulled most of the banana chips off the shelf. And then they were watching closely who was buying. I mean, this is not, peanut butter. Like, not everyone's, but I don't know about you guys, but not every trip to the market's bringing in banana chip. And sure enough, they get her. She does not scan her banana chips. And then, quite incredibly, it's the only item she was stealing over these weeks. And police went to her car out in the parking lot. And what did they find? 13 bags unopened of banana chips. She wasn't even eating the banana chips. She was just stealing them. It should be noted, this is according to the sheriff's
black market
deputy,
for banana chips.
She wasn't selling them. She wasn't eating them. She was just hoarding banana chips in her car in Vero Beach. She commented, according to the police report, that she does not know why she steals something so stupid. That's a direct quote, adding, "It's not worth going to jail over and losing her job." Total theft was $150.
She just wanted to feel alive, Dan. We know what this is. She wanted to feel alive.
I agree. Like, thought, what should the punishment be? Obviously, this is a misdemeanor. This is not high crime, but watch list at least. What is happening? Max, thoughts on the Justice Olson? Your thoughts on the banana chip bandit?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked at a Target, and the department that would handle this is called loss prevention. And when I was reading this, Dan, I'm like, this sounds like just one of the greatest loss prevention stories of all time. Of like, guys, what is going on with the dry banana chips? And then, as it goes on, guys, we're on day 30 of banana chip watch. Like, we got to put the cameras on this. We got to solve this. So I pictured that. I think she's just trying to feel alive. I'll tell you what, we've got a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so, we've made the switch over to whole milk here for our 1-year-old. And I think at the grocery store, it's usually like $5.50. I saw it for $7.50 at the gas station yesterday. And I wonder if this is, and I was offended and kept it moving. Maybe she's trying to send a message. What has inflation done to banana chips? Is she trying to call attention to maybe a national problem that we've not been paying attention to?
$6.49 for a bag of chips.
I think the best way for me to comment on this is to note that when I was walking around Big 12 Media Day, a handful of people pulled me aside and said, "You really let Dan get off the rails when he went on vacation the last couple weeks. He got the old band back together. Like, they're doing World Cup drinking games. Like, what happened?" And I was just like, when the adults are away, the kids will play.
Yes, we did.
Banana chips.
They found 13 podcasts in Dan's car. Yeah.
Yeah. They found Pat 40 in the back eating banana chips.
All these unpublished podcasts in his back seat. Yeah.
Listen. We had
McGee and Shotgun doing an essay on plantains. Yeah.
Nobody listens to this podcast for my actual intelligent discussions of college football. This is really the thing. I appreciate people noticed. Whether that was good or bad, I don't know.
They noticed.
I think the real victim here are the other banana chip enthusiasts in Vero Beach, who were under unnecessary surveillance because of this woman, and they had their stash limited. It's because of her. So you got to think of that. But
do you think the folks at Amazon are like, why are we delivering so many dehydrators to this town? Like, is that
what
is going on here? And it's that people needed to make their own.
If she spends any time in jail, no banana chips on the commissary list. I think that you can buy like the honey bun. You get the little your little noodles or something. You don't want that jail food. Other
you
than
think
that,
they sent people down the snack aisle undercover, Dan?
I don't know what they were doing. I wish I need more
dress in
details.
Florida State gear and just pace aisle 11 until in the snack aisle till you see someone shoving some banana chips down there.
If you happen to be listening and you are in charge of loss prevention at this Vero Beach Publix, hit me up next time. Both Pete and Reese are away, and they let me just run this show. We'll do a whole hour.
Well,
the whole
to
hour.
bring it
Just
full
say
circle,
you're like
guys.
a Miami fan or something. Well, I'll figure it out. We'll figure that out later. How did you get the banana chip bandit under control? Anyway, crime.
I mean, to bring it full circle here, I want to see this woman hire Jeffrey Kessler, and I want to see Jeffrey Kessler cook for 45 minutes in a district courtroom, spinning a story of how this woman was wrong.
You think she's a future Red Raider, Max? Is that what you're saying? You think she could line up for the Fighting Cody Campbell this year?
As Brandon Sorsby's agent said, Jeffrey Kessler is the Harlem Globetrotters at this point, and so I'd like to see him take this one on next.
Tom Mars is down in that area. He's got a little spot down there. Maybe Attorney Mars would like to take this case on. Yeah, I think you got a good point there. I mean, what is an arrest anymore? You get 3 more years of eligibility to shop at the Publix. Anyway, people,
give
don't
her an
steal
injunction
the banana
so she could steal banana chips unimpeded until her court date.
It's not the only place that sells banana chips. Be careful. Head on a swivel, banana chip people. Don't steal. Do good work at the little self-scanner. Come on. It's a societal deal. Although you're making me do the work. Maybe there's an error. I don't know. Anyway, that's our show. We'll be back next week with more important subjects. I held it together for like 53 minutes.
So it wasn't bad, Dan. Wasn't bad.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Pretty good effort. Pretty good effort. I mean, I mentioned the offensive line of Cincinnati. That's strong.
Yeah. You didn't mention the pancakes either. I thought you were going to go.
No, they were giving out pancakes, weren't they, or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Syrup, the whole thing.
Who doesn't
like pancakes? Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to you later.